Here we are again, everybody. Welcome back. We're going to do another list tonight. Very excited. All kinds of wonderful things to show you. Tonight's list is going to be a top 10. Not really a top 10. I'm not really putting these in any real specific order, just to let you know. It's just going to be, count them 10, of the most underrated, I wouldn't say the most, just underrated and or lesser known progressive rock albums. So this is my top 10-ish kind of idea. I'm sure to some of you these will be like, okay, whatever, heard it, a dozen times. To some of you, you might be like, well, what the holy hell is that? But that's what this is all about. It's fun. Go explore. Type it in the internet and see what beholds you. So like I said, this is just going to be progressive rock albums, 10 of them, that I find to be a little bit lesser known and or very underrated, need to be talked about more. Maybe not talked about more, but just definitely, given the limelight that is due to some of these albums. So let's just get right into it. This was an extremely fun list for me to devise because I love progressive rock so very much. You all will get to know that about me. So here we go. Did a lot of talking about this in recent past. In the first video I made, this is of course again the masters themselves, the band Wobbler. This is their third release, released in 2011 on, I'm pretty sure, Charisma Records, or no, it says right there, a label called Termo Records before they were picked up by Charisma in Norway. This, an astounding album. Just to obviously first glance, beautiful cover art, sort of Scandinavian / Celtic knotwork around this, sphere of beautiful shades of green, a circle of trees, and what seems like maybe doves or ravens depicted. Album called Rites at Dawn. They get a little bit Norwegian, kind of white witchy. It's kind of cool. But, where to start with this album? The art grabbed me right off the get-go when I was looking into these guys, and then upon listening to it, it just, like I've said before, it has all those bells and whistles and all those frills and all those things that progressive rock, it's all those little kind of like moments and calling cards that makes progressive rock what it is. And they just held on to it, and they are, like I said before, just kind of the modern day continuation of what was happening in the 60s and 70s when progressive rock, when rock and roll began to progress. Just, group of gentlemen that can piece things together and play around with sounds and ideas, and astounding musicians. Kind of a goofy picture of them, but I highly recommend this album. Like I said, if you like the ode to the, I guess you could say, what's a good word for it? The kind of homage to prog rock. And they're still doing it. They're still kicking ass. I hope they, with the COVIDs in the air, decided to sit down and maybe write some more tunes. This being their third release, it was 6 years, almost, 5 to 6 years between this, their third album, and their fourth album, Between Silence and Somewhere. And too long to wait. I had almost kind of like not forgotten about them, but I had kind of just been like, shit, did they break up? Where'd they go? I was like researching them, like, I hope they come to America. They don't. Unfortunately, they don't come to America, even in, the state of the world right now. Even before this horrible pandemic, they just never come to America. They probably feel like it wouldn't be a lucrative venture for them, seeing as how most people have never heard of them. I think they played like the Progtoberfest in Illinois, like maybe 7-8 years ago or something like that. I don't know, but boo, never gonna be able to check these guys out live probably. So stellar band, a little bit, you know, lesser known. I wouldn't say anything besides that. They pretty amazing band. Everybody needs to get this album. Fan of Prog. What's next on the list? Here's one, 1975. What was happening in 1975 was all types and categories and people and musicians and bands were being overshadowed, of course, by, you know, the giants of what was going on at the time. You know, no one could get any stage time around Pink Floyd and Led Zeppelin and what have you. So a gentleman by the name of Mike Oldfield, of course, you all know him of Tubular Bells' success and fame. I'm not saying he didn't get his due. So, of course, beyond Tubular Bells, after that, everyone kind of just like, all right, cool jam, man, and then kind of put him aside. And then he just kept releasing amazing things that people just, you know, didn't pay enough attention to, I think. Really, he himself obviously is not underrated because he, you know, got a lot of, you know, acclaim for Tubular Bells. This was 2 years later, Tubular Bells in 73, this was in 75. One in between called Hergest Ridge, another fantastic album. This one being, I wouldn't say like an answer to the first two albums. This stands on its own. It is, it's not bizarre, but it's very avant, in my opinion. Just kind of goes through, you know, how he does, and it's just kind of like one long composition, which is, you know, really cool. You know, sits down and it feels like it's, you know, the majority of it, I believe, probably was recorded outdoors. He played, you know, 12 out of the 15 instrumentations on the album. He plays just about everything you can imagine, besides just kind of the more frilly kind of stuff, like, you know, pan pipes and the timpani and the cello and things like that, but more of the kind of like functional instruments. He plays them all, and it's just got that, you know, that air of what, you know, you British folk and the Celtic, you know, part of the world are so good at, and it's just got that vibe and that feel of, like, you know, Celtic folk and that sort of thing. It just takes you away. Most people I talk to, of course, when you mention Mike Oldfield, all they just instantly think of is Tubular Bells and The Exorcist or whatever. But this one just didn't get the attention I think it deserves. One big, long, drawn-out piece with a little bit of interesting, like, chanting at the end, and it's got an interesting story behind it. You should research it and read about it and check it out. Yeah, highly recommend it. Get some Ommadawn by Mike Oldfield. Highly underrated and quite a bit lesser known. So that's number 9 on the list. Moving right along, this guy, everybody knows this guy. He's not in the lesser known category by any stretch of the phrase. We all know who he is, but in my opinion, this one just kind of, I don't see it on anyone's lists. I don't hear anyone talking about it in, like, the prog world. At least on YouTube, sometimes everyone, you know, they talk about the classics and they talk about some of the newer, you know, more obscure stuff that you might, you know, be coming out of Italy or, you know, what have you. And everyone just kind of wrote this off as just kind of being kind of like a cheap version of, you know, prog, and just kind of like inserting things here and there just to kind of make a rock album seem like it's a progressive album. Anyway, I've heard a lot of shit talking about it, basically, is what I'm saying. I, on the other hand, when I picked this up, got nothing but just beautiful, warm feelings from it. Right from the first track. The first track really kind of bangs you upside the head. I'm talking about Steven Wilson. Steven Wilson, you know, multi-talented, insano, awesome producer, amazing guitar player, songwriter. Everyone knows him as the frontman for the band Porcupine Tree, but also has an extensive solo career. And this is his solo career, his band. I'm sure he borrowed a few musicians from Porcupine Tree. Maybe the drummer, insane drummer. All the musicians are, of course, stellar musicians. That's what you got to do when you're a prog super band and you're playing with a guy like Steven Wilson. But this album, somewhat conceptual, beautiful artwork. That's what kind of like captivates you right off the bat. And full of just kind of like instantly timeless tracks. The first one, I believe, being Luminol. Is that the first track on it? Yeah. A 12-minute track, the entire A-side, a song called Luminol. It just, bam, boom, and it just starts rocking right off the bat, doesn't stop. Punch you in the face, they keep rolling with it, drive home a really kind of a softer type ballad, sad story talking about, some love lost, probably, things of that nature, into another kind of slam bang punch you in the face song called The Holy Drinker. Obviously something he's probably written whilst watching, some poor schlub alcoholic, drown his sorrows at a bar. And it's a pretty slam and rockin' song. Seaside starts with another, really great melody it's called The Pin Drop. Great melodies and harmonies, more screaming guitar in that one. And then again with another one called The Watchmaker. It just continues to just like plow through these just like amazing, modern, contemporary, progressive rock masterpieces. And then you get to the D side, you flop that thing on, drop the needle. This song called The Raven That Refused to Sing, which is the namesake to the album. It's the title track to this album, The Raven That Refused to Sing. And what a heart-wrenching ballad of just epic proportions. I wept a little bit when I heard this the first time. Of course, I was going through a rough time with some love lost in my life, and this didn't help in the least. Besides, give me a sense of feeling that, hey, everybody feels agony. Everybody feels pain. Even the birds. Whatever tale this guy is trying to tell. This is a masterpiece. Like I said, I wouldn't say it's underrated, because it definitely, besides being picked on by some like real, staunch prog enthusiasts, it did get picked on and it got some good ribbing, but I just feel that when talking about, monster smash progressive albums, like this doesn't really get talked about as much as it should. Released quite a while ago, back in probably 2012, maybe 2014, 2013, on his label K-Scope Records. So everyone get out and get a piece of this. I think it's less than $40. Well worth every penny. Steven Wilson, The Raven That Refused to Sing. Boy, we're cruising right along. I'm kind of going like neo-prog, classic prog, neo-prog, classic prog. Here we are in 1975 again, same as Mike Oldfield. 1975, of course, a good year for classic prog rock. This kind of falls in the category of the lesser knowns. I stumbled across this, probably a decade ago, and what a treat. I mean, what a talented group of individuals. Back then, I believe I think they're from the UK. I may be wrong. Pretty sure they're from the UK. Most fantastic prog in the 70s came out of the UK. We all know that. This is a band called Druid, and the album's called Toward the Sun. Oh man, these guys, I mean, besides the really cool, captivating art right off the get-go, you have this kind of like surreal, you know, artistic depiction of like a landscape, and then there's like this bubble, and you know, the world dead on the inside, and you know, surreal abstract on the outside. You could sit and stare at this for an hour and come up with all sorts of thoughts and dreams and whatever. You know, this came from the island across the puddle. It's got a wonderful textured cover. Again, they are depicted on the back like they're in a like a snow globe kind of concept. These four guys, it feels like a concept album from start to finish. When I first heard this, it was on a playlist, you know, probably on YouTube, something like that. And whoever had, you know, put the playlist on the internet switched the A-side and the B-side. So the album began B-side and then the A-side. And so that's how I heard the album from the beginning. And to tell you the truth, after spinning it so long and enjoying it as much as I had, like, I kind of like this album B-side first. It just flows. It flows a little bit more kind of, I don't know. It's hard to explain. Anyway, these guys, that great kind of softer soft rock prog sound, not really a heavy song on this album. All pretty kind of medium tempo, but still really, you know, frilly, and you know, moments of just, you know, beautiful colors being painted. The singer has a really fantastic falsetto, high falsetto voice, like very feminine, and just takes it the whole way, you know, just kind of no holds barred, and just kind of like sings in that high falsetto nearly the entire album. And it's just great. It's just fantastic. Super album. I recommend it to anyone that appreciates 70s classic prog from the UK. You're gonna get your kicks out of this one. You know, lots of fantastic keyboard work. Most of it, like I said, being pretty subtle. There's not really any like heavy psychedelic influence or heavy rock influence. There's not a lot of jazz influence. It's just kind of like, you know, simplistic. Nothing wrong with some simplistic, you know, stuff every now and again. So everyone would enjoy this if you're into the progressive scene. So give this a shot. Tell me what you think in the comments. I love it. Druid. Okay. Yeah, these guys. Back into the newer scope of progressive rock. Thinking on a contemporary, the contemporary side of things. These guys really bummed me out when I realized that these guys were a little bit older, from about 10, 12 years ago. They made 2 albums and then peaced out. It's kind of a bummer when that happens. You find stuff and you get super excited. Man, I could even go down to California and see these guys. And no, they just made a couple albums and decided to call it quits for whatever reason they had, which is too bad, because their entire concept and what they were trying to accomplish, they really, it's captivating, and it's badass. These guys from San Diego, they are called Astra. This album is their second album that they made. I believe this was right around 2008, maybe. This record label I've never heard of. They're called Rise Above Records. I'm just gonna take a stab. I'm gonna say it was probably 2008 when this record was released. And they had one before this, which probably, you know, was the precursor, probably a year prior. But Astra, the Black Chord. I saw this art and I was just like, man, that is wicked fucking cool. Just wicked cool. You know, beautiful. I'm sure if it was hand painted by a friend or someone they know or whatever, you can see it's got that kind of, you know, Frank Frazetta kind of like watercolor fantasy art style. I mean, look at that. Just gorgeous. It's got some crazy cool sci-fi themes going on here. You open it up and it's just like, oh, come on, give me a break. You know, some kind of like a shout out to, you know, Roger Dean and what was going on in the 70s with the Yes artwork and all the stuff that he contributed to. Yeah, these guys, real cool. And so what they do is, you know, with the prog sound is just take that, you know, their synth player with all the just, you know, insane stuff. You know, he's got at least 4 or 5 different kind of synthesizers going on as far as the Moog and, you know, the Mellotron. So all those classic sounds that you're used to hearing, you know, out of 70s prog, it's all in here. Insane lead guitar player, soloing like crazy. All the musicians are fantastic. Kind of like, want to say like Santana, Latin infused. You know, Santana had a baby with, you know, Black Sabbath, and then got all crazy prog with it. This awesome like ice blue wax. Man, these guys, so stoked when I discovered these guys, and I just listened to the shit out of this for years. And they just, no more music from these guys, but this still exists. I think I saw a copy of this in one of my local record stores. Shout out to Moon Rock Records on 8th Avenue in Eugene, Oregon. They had a copy of this sitting in their store for like forever, for years, and no one ever bought it up. And when I'd go in there, I'd be flipping through shit and be like, man, these guys are really great. You should check these out. And like trying to sell their shit for them. No one's ever heard of these guys. Yeah, totally underrated, totally not unknown, but I mean just, you know, much lesser known. So fits my little list just dandy. And also check out their first album too. It's called The Weirding. It's way more kind of sludgy, kind of, not doom, but it's got more classic, you know, proto-metal type of feel to it. Like you feel like you're like, fuck, am I listening to Sabbath? Like this is really cool. But then there's like a bunch of synth in the background, and it's like, no, I'm definitely not listening to Sabbath. But yeah, these guys are fantastic. Get you some Astra. Real good. The Black Chord. I could recommend every song on this album. There's actually not that many. I think it's like 3 on the A side, 2 on the B side. You know, really awesome. Elaborate compositions. Really great guitar playing. If you guys are into guitar, if you're all my guitar dudes out there, great guitar work. Get some. All right, hope I'm not boring the hell out of you guys. I worked pretty hard on this list because, like I said, I have a real big place in my heart for progressive rock music, and that's what a lot of my collection consists of. And so when I wanted to like bring some stuff into the limelight for you folks, like, oh, some like little tidbits of like lesser known shit that everyone would really appreciate. So for all you guys and gals and people that are fans of prog, this band obviously is not going to surprise you that they're on my list. They're one of the bigger names in progressive rock from the past. I'm talking about Camel. So what we all know about Camel is they're just astounding. As far as their ability to be able to play with elements of jazz, where they kind of began in the world of rock music, being more of like, in my opinion, more of kind of a jazz rock band. And then as the years progressed, this is, you know, I'm talking, their first self-titled, I believe, was in 70, maybe 69, but I think it was 70. And then immediately thereafter, their seminal album, Mirage, came out. And when Mirage came out, everyone just went, wow, smoking, man. You know, because they were just this smoking, crazy, awesome jazz rock band. And they just kept, I mean, talk about the the namesake, it doesn't get more progressive than what these guys were doing. I mean, sure, you have the giants of the Canterbury scene and all that, these guys being from the UK as well, but they were just a little bit, not a whole generation younger, but just a little bit younger. They just got a little bit later of a start than everyone. And like I said, their first album probably being in 70, and then they gained some success and some notoriety with their second album, I believe, Mirage. And just doing some just great playing. Their guitar player, Andrew Latimer, incredible songwriter, knows how to just go beyond just kind of the basic play of just jazz, you know, and started getting really intricate with his compositions. And it's okay, we're progressive rock, and they kind of like were fueling that genre. At the same time, of course, you have the giants. They're still in the game, and they're getting really artsy with things. You know, you see, you know, King Crimson and Yes over here, and they're kind of battling it out and stealing each other's members and whatever the hell else is going on. Pink Floyd's in the back rolling their fucking eyes, and they're like, we just want to play some blues. We just want to play some psychedelic shit. You know, whatever. Camel's in the back, like, just kind of like writing everything down. And like, let's do this. Conceptualize and really make these fantastic little pieces, these little vignettes, these little art pieces. And that's what they did. They just kept progressing, and they kept changing the mode every album. And it just keeps going on down the line until you get to a little bit later when prog rock seemed to be kind of like, everyone, they were becoming dinosaurs. And, you know, punk rock was entering the scene, disco was entering the scene, and metal, you know, metal was becoming a voice, like something real, like. And these guys were just like, we're just gonna keep rolling with the punches, and we're gonna take little bits and pieces of what's popular, inject it into what we know how to do, be smoking musicians, and just keep playing with it. And that's what they did. Rain dances, elements of course, their early days of jazz rock, the progressive scene, as you just got more artistic and more abstract, they kept doing that, playing with elements of, you know, the no wave stuff that was coming into the limelight, and of course, and even disco, like dance music. Like, I can't even explain it. Everyone really needs to listen to this record. If you're skeptical or whatever, go ahead and be skeptical. Like, put this shit on, drop the needle, and just close your eyes and check it out. And you'll be tapping your toe, you'll be smiling, you'll be taken away, your heartstrings will be plucked. There's little bits and pieces of everything. Just a touching record. 1977. Look at these goofy fucking dudes. They're great. They look completely schnockered. They're wasted out of their minds. Oh, cocaine is a hell of a drug. Yeah. I'll go ahead and shut up about this one. It's too good for words. I said too many words. But everyone, check out Camel's Rain Dances. Highly, highly underrated. This should be, I mean, half of their albums should be on everybody's fucking top 10 Prog album records, blah, blah, blah. It's always the same garbage. Everyone's got the same garbage on their lists. Okay, I will stop talking shit about other YouTubers, and I will keep moving. I got my list here. We're going to go back into the contemporary realm. This band, totally unknown. I guarantee you not one of you fuckers ever even heard of these guys. I'm not saying I'm cooler than you. I'm just saying, like, I love stumbling across this stuff, like these like hyper obscure bands. Like, these guys made 2 records, and they probably went back to whatever life they had, and they're like, well, that was fun, we made some records. Like, they got zero notoriety for it. They didn't sell any copies of it. I discovered this shit, and then I like researched the hell out of it. They didn't press it to vinyl. They made cheap little cardboard, you know, sleeve CDs, and even still, it was like cost me like $28, and I had to get it shipped from Russia, and so that was, you know, $14 in shipping or whatever the fuck. So you guys need to listen to this band. They're called Icon. I don't know how to pronounce it. They're Russian. Icon, A-I-C-A-N. I believe this was their second release. Their first one is called like Musicians Kill or something like that, like something really cool. Their art, whoever did the art design for them, is just amazing. This one, it's called Don't Go Deep into the Forest. Oh man. So being from Russia, they have, of course, you have these elements of their folk stylings, their folk music injected into what they're doing. But this stuff, it's hard rock. It's definitely hard rock with that progressive flair. Like, they're not playing hard rock like anyone else plays rock, hard rock. It's very unique, injected with their own Russian folk music. And I think they're a three-piece too, man, which makes them even more stellar. They're just, man, I can't believe how they're doing what they're doing with, the sound effects and just the musicianship that they're pulling off. It's just a whirlwind ride. It's almost scary sometimes in moments. Like, it's almost like kind of like you get a little nervous. You're like, what the hell is going on? Super, super cool. All instrumental. No vocals, no lyrics, nothing. All instrumental. It's just wicked, wicked fucking cool. You get to, like, I think it's 4 tracks. First track's like 12 minutes. Second track and third track, a little bit shorter, along the lines of like 4 or 5 minutes, but they all seamlessly just kind of like melt into each other. The story's being told. They're telling you, don't go into the deep forest, you know what I mean? And like, in the last one is just this like insano ride. Like, you went too deep, dude. You went too deep, and now you're gonna get fucked. It's so crazy. Guitars screaming, all kinds of insane polyrhythms and odd meter on the drums. You're getting like all kinds of weird 5s and 9s and 13s and stuff, like intricate patterns that these guys are playing between each other. I looked up on the YouTubes and tried to find videos of these guys. You won't find anything. You'll find like 1 or 2 like random weird live performances by them, and so you can watch them and see how they do what they do, and it's just like super, super duper cool. Check this band out. Don't Go Deep into the Forest. I call this progressive rock because it is unlike standard everyday pop music. It's not popular music. It is different than old rock and roll, ergo it is progressive rock. Check it. Yeah. Oh man, I've been talking a long time again, guys. I'm sorry. I get so excited. Here's one that everyone's gonna maybe chuckle about. I don't think you should chuckle about this band. I respect this band. They're so great, dude. Any band from the 70s where the guys were just sporting a perm like it's nothing, like, ultimate respect. I wish I could pull off a perm like these guys do. My Uncle Jay had a perm in the late 70s. He was a stud. Anyway, this band, you all know, you've all heard, Ambrosia. Their first self-titled album, I believe 75, 76? 75. Probably 21st Century Fox Records, whatever. 20th Century Fox, they were popular. They got their comeuppance. They, like, right off the bat, everyone's like, these guys are fucking great. Kind of just plopped right into the scene somewhere around probably the Eastern Seaboard, maybe like Philadelphia or something like that. But no one really gives them credit where credit's due as far as being a band pushing the envelope back then. Because markets flooded with, Boston, markets flooded with Styx, markets flooded with, Doobie Brothers, and all this stuff that's going on, all this awesome smoking Americana, blues rock, all that stuff. And these guys were like, well, we like that stuff too, but we also really, really like, Yes. And we also really like, all this really kind of like artistic, you know, creative, psychedelic shit that was, you know, they were raised on. Like I said, kind of was talking about with Camel, kind of like the American version of Camel. They were on that wave, not on the crest of the wave. They were on like kind of the back tail of the, you know, the scene when progressive music was really, really, all the giants had already been made. And these guys were like, well, we want to be giant too. Not to talk down about them, but they just didn't get their comeuppance as being like a prog band. And mostly because after this album, they didn't really remain a progressive band. They kind of wanted to just like get some, you know, make it a job. You know, they wanted to take it and be artists, get a paycheck, and go home and start a family. Whatever they want to do. I don't know that much about their personal lives. But this album is progressive as fuck. It really, really is. It's got all sorts of really cool songs. Don't really have like any big function to them as far as it being like a conceptual album, but little bits and pieces of, like I said, Americana, blues, jazz, psychedelia, like all types, and it's all infused with very creative, artistic, you know, design. So I classify it as progressive. There's moments in here where they go into some pretty, you know, avant places, and it deserves that label. And it's just catchy as fuck. I mean, they know how to write great tunes. Both of their singers. Oh, I mean, they have like a main lead singer. I can't remember his name. But then the dude with the giant perm also backs up vocals. Their drummer is incredible, jazz style percussionist. Yeah, all four excellent musicians, but their vocal work especially it will tickle you. It will just tickle you how wonderfully they sing. And so, yeah, and you know, the lyrical content, also great, you know, playing with their words real well. All the songs make sense. It's not just a bunch of, you know, jibber jabber. Anyway, I'll slow down about this. But everyone ought to give this a shot. It's kind of where it began and where it ended for me with Ambrosia. I tried taking on their, you know, the albums they created after this, and definitely didn't hold a candle to this or any real distinct flair for me, and I just kind of like fell off the train. But this one I kept. I've always had this. I've had this for a long time, and I play it all the time. You know, these songs. The first song's kind of goofy. Not really sure. It's borderline kind of like, you know, racially insensitive. But you know, then the second song, you hear these like, you know, tick-tocking clocks, sound effects as it goes into this wonderful kind of like rolling 6/8 time signature, you know, really playing with the rhythms and kind of showing off what their drummer's capable of and their guitar player is capable of. As far as, I mean, 6/8 is not an odd meter or a difficult meter by any means, but it definitely has a lot of room for, you know, extra play and syncopation and stuff, and so you have those eighth notes that you're playing with, and just a lot of sixteenths in between, all that triplety feel. It's a great way to show off your talent if you're a player who is percussively driven. But yeah, percussively driven songs. Next, you know, track 3, Hold On to Yesterday. Now we're talking they're going to a real soulful place where they know how to work in some spiritual and some soul type music. Ending the side with World Leave Me Alone. Yeah, and Make Us All Aware to open up the second side. They hit some really great concepts spiritually, and like I said, you know, I don't know, definitely a prog album. Anyone that says otherwise can kiss my grits. Love this band, love this album specifically. Everyone ought to check it out. Ambrosia, self-titled, 1975. And cool fucking cover, by the way, right? One of the cooler covers from that era, from that mid-70s, like before everything started getting really commercialized and really kind of just like run-of-the-mill, put a stamp on it, put it in the fucking machine, and let's get some dollars and cents rolling through. You know, they still were like putting some effort into things. Yeah. Well, we're getting down to the last little bit here, folks. I hope you've been enjoying yourselves. This is another contemporary progressive rock band that I found late one night on the internet, like I usually do. You're sitting there and you know, opened up Pandora's pussy and you're like, what's gonna flop out? Well, let's see. Sorry, that was awful and colorful, wasn't it? This band, wicked cool. Discovered them one night. They are from Sweden. They no longer exist. Again, unfortunately, another one of those bands that you discover and then you're like, oh cool, they have like 3 awesome albums and they haven't made another one for 10 plus years, and they probably won't. So sad but true. But these guys are called Black Bonzo. I don't know if it has any correlation or any kind of, it's you know, paying homage to Bonzo, which would be John Bonham, the drummer for Led Zeppelin. I don't really know. They do have a lot of influence that seems to stem from that era of early 70s blues, rock, heavy kind of stuff. But that was reserved more for their first album. They changed the style. They changed, not the style per se, but they changed the, you know, the sound they were getting out of their instruments. They changed their methodology altogether for both their second album, and this would be their third album. I'm pretty sure this was like in the realm of 2009, I want to say. Yeah, 2009. My numbers are pretty on today. Again, a group called Black Bonzo. This album is called The Guillotine Drama. These guys are from Sweden. I'm pretty sure they're from Stockholm. Or nope, it says right there, Skellefteå, Sweden. Really awesome band. Like they take that like early 70s rock thing and then they, you know, make it progressive. It's really cool. You know, first song on the album, you know, has an air of, you know, we're talking about revolution kind of thing. It's, you know, it's called The Guillotine Drama. But just kind of like in the streets, you know, going for blood, you know, really grandiose, operatic type of singing style this guy has. Huge Queen vibes, like huge Queen vibes. But really great, like all the musicianship and all the instrumentation and the composition style is very unique. And it doesn't sound like a Queen album. And he doesn't sound like Freddie Mercury. That's what I immediately kind of like latched onto, is like, oh man, these guys have some really heavy Queen vibes, but they do it justice. They're taking it to the hilt. Really cool. I mean, the hits just keep coming. They really craft their songs like they like wrote, you know, a classic album in 1972. Like, you know, like, and they just know how to do it. Really cool. Some of the concepts are kind of, you know, fantasy oriented, and some of the concepts of their songs are, you know, about heartbreak and about drugs and whatever else, you know, what people write about in rock music. But the undertones, the thematic undertones of this, darker, and it reeks of revolution, and it reeks of like, it's time to throw your fist in the air and stop taking shit, you know? Don't know if, I don't know anything about world events, at least from that, you know, from 10, 12 years ago. If Sweden was going through some shit, maybe Scandinavia at some point, that maybe they were going through typical things like a lot of Europe was, like where their money is losing value and they're having, you know, all types of protests and shit going on. I don't remember reading anything about it, but anyway, these guys might be freedom fighters. They might be anarchists. I don't fucking know. That'd be cool if they were. But their music is absolutely fantastic. I adore it. Get yourself some Black Bonzo, specifically this album, The Guillotine Drama. You will love it, I guarantee. Super cool. Okay, well, this is the last one. And this is another one of those kind of like, oh, well, whatever, dude, kind of things. Like, it happens to be, I'm not gonna say it's on my top 10. I'm not gonna ever say anything like that, because I like way too much music. I could never place anything in my top 10 greatest of all time kind of thing. But I don't know, pontificating, and if I was, speculating, if there were to be something that was, like a top 10 of my personal best of all times, this would be up there. This would be floating up there, probably. An album by a band that I mention all the time because they are heavyweights of progressive rock. In my opinion, probably one of the best, if not the best, progressive rock album or rock band of all time. Of course, that band is Yes. And their 1974 highly underrated album called Relayer. You all know this album. You've all heard mixed reviews and things about this album. More so these days, I hear a lot of people actually saying that, that's like my favorite of theirs. I'm like, oh yeah, let's talk about it. Talk about it with me, will ya? And they can't talk about it because they weren't being honest. And let's start over. I don't want to be condescending and shitty. This, I'm not going to even say is my favorite Yes album. It just demands way more respect than Yes fans and other prog rock fans give it. 1974, they had gone through some very turbulent times. The band, speaking, and the world was going through some turbulence, some severe turbulence. There was, Vietnam War was, going crazy. Protests here at home, all sorts of wild shit going on. No one had any faith in their government anymore. No one had any faith in themselves anymore. These guys had been in America making music for some time. I think they came over probably in 71, just before the Fragile album got gigantic, and they, needed to do a tour in America, and I think they just kind of stayed for the Fragile tour. But Bruford finally left. We all know that tale. Who knows exactly how it happened? I couldn't give two shits. I'll shoot you guys straight, cut and dry. Bill Bruford is my least favorite member of Yes, out of all of them. Total fucking twit, honestly. I don't think he's a great drummer at all. I think a lot of what he did was just rip off the first drummer from King Crimson. He wanted to play just like him, and he wanted to be a jazz drummer. And he finally got what he wanted, and he got to join King Crimson. I would say good fucking riddance. Not because I'm a hateful person. Bill Bruford, thank you for everything you did in King Crimson. I think he's far better off with what happened and being in King Crimson with someone like Fripp to keep a leash on him and make him the drummer that he became and what he should be. Best thing that ever happened to Yes happened with the prior album with Tales from Topographic Oceans. Alan White, best thing, best fit for Yes. Just magic. Obviously the guy's still playing drums for Yes, fucking 40 years later. Best thing that ever happened in the history of Yes. But also they lost, after Topographic Oceans, they lost Rick Wakeman. Boy, I'm making waves today. Welcome to Aaron Major's Unpopular Opinion Hour. No one likes my opinions. I don't like Rick Wakeman either. I think Rick Wakeman, I don't think he's shit. I just think that what he was doing with Yes was just a bunch of recapitulating nonsense and a bunch of frills and a bunch of the same chords over and over again, just kind of flopping them all together. The guy talked nonstop shit about the band that he was in, for 3 years straight, And it's like, if you don't even like the band, dude, just leave, you know? I mean, he did. But he just was kind of just like, he was ruining the band. Like, Close to the Edge is an absolute bore because of those two guys. Okay, let me rephrase that. Close to the Edge is a monumental album. It is an amazing, amazing album. But I do get bored to death because Bruford's drumming and Wakeman's keyboards are so dull and so just regurgitative and just kind of like going through the motions. Bruford's hiccupy, weird triplet. I'm off the triplet. No, I'm on the triplet and I'm being, you know, avant-garde and my drumming is unique. No, it's not unique. And it's fucking taking away from the music. It's taking away from the grandiose, beautiful music that you're a part of. And you can't seem to see through your own ego. Those guys were just clouded by their own egos, and you could see it. Okay, sorry. And again, I'm not being hateful. I'm just being honest about my opinions. Those guys finally out of the picture, and then you have this very brief faction of Yes, and it's my favorite. It is my absolute favorite faction of Yes. Is John Anderson, of course Chris Squire, and Patrick Moraz on the keys with Alan White and Steve Howe. And what absolute magic from the right as it begins. You have those and it just doesn't stop. What, 18 minutes I think it is? Fuckstick. Maybe less. It's 16, 17 minutes. That melody and that theme, just beautiful. Just absolutely beautiful. Just gets going, talking about, you know, insane concepts of just being delirious and, you know, addiction and just insanity going on in the world around you, and it just goes to cacophony and just gets builds, and just you hear all these crazy percussive things and these crashes and bangs and all this insane shit that's going on. Chris Squire's amazing bass strokes all in between. It builds, you know, and just, oh man, I'll never forget the first time I heard it. You just hear all this like dropping percussion, just bang, bang, bang. And as it's going, it almost sounds like it's like a car that's just like on its last leg, like it's running out of gas. Jug, 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 jug. And it just goes to this amazing, uplifting, monumental moment with just like percussion, guitar, bass, just soars to the clouds with this theme that they created, this musical theme that is just like, you'll be whistling it all day in your head. And like, it's like, they rehashed the theme. The first time they played the theme is Patrick Moraz is playing it on his like really interesting synth effects that he's got, and it's really cool. And just all the wobbling things he's doing. He plays the theme, goes through this interesting like kind of like large scale 5 theme, if you know what I mean. Like it's like not your typical like, you know, 4 bars of 4. It's like 5 bars of 4, kind of just a little bit off kilter of a theme. He plays through that theme twice, and then Steve Howe comes on his guitar. I think he's playing his slide guitar, whatever that is, the pedal steel, and he has the effects on his pedal steel, and he's like, you know, mimicking the theme that Patrick Moraz just played, and it's just like this like epic soaring up an octave, like a higher, you know, 1 octave higher than what Moraz was playing, and it just soars into the heavens, just this high screeching squeal, and it builds, and it's all echoey, and it fizzles out into the second track, which technically wouldn't even be a second track. It's just kind of like an outro. It's the outro to The Gates of Delirium, and that's the A-side, and no one ever notices it, but you know, when he's singing Soon, it is a recapitulation of that theme that we heard from the beginning. So it's the same song, just a very soft, mellow, almost brings you to tears type of outro. Wow, this album. Oh my God. And then the second, you know, it's like they got, I'm not going to say more, you know, pop sensible with this one, but they're like, cool, B-side, 2 tracks, you know, like, you know, a couple 6 minutes, you know, and it's just fun. It's just like fun ideas that just, the continuation of, you know, the point they're getting across. And yeah, just this album, so underrated. Needs to be talked about more, needs to be appreciated more. All of you prog heads need to give it its credit where it's due. Of course, Roger Dean, incredible album art, some of his best work in my opinion. All this like gray granite pillar work with these white knights going into the cavern where the snake dwells, and just astounding artwork by Roger Dean. So yeah, that's the last one on my list. This album definitely underappreciated for far too long. These guys, I mean, talk about the world's leading underappreciated band. They just made the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, what, 3 years ago? Couldn't believe it. Big year for me. 2 of my favorite bands inducted at the same time. Yes, and Pearl Jam. But way too long coming. I mean, geez. One of the most underrated bands of all time. Yes. And this is one of their greatest works, in my opinion. So that will wrap it up for this evening. Everybody, thanks for joining me. I appreciate all of the traffic I'm getting, all of the thumbs up, likes, and comments, and please subscribe. There will be more videos coming. I'm going to talk at you some more. Talk about music. Talk about other things. If you want to see anything specific from me, don't hesitate to mention in the comments. Like, hey, dude, man, do a show about, you know, rate the Pink Floyd albums or whatever. No, I'm not going to do that. That's silly. But I am going to keep making content, probably once a week. I'll probably follow this up with an addendum like I did with the first video, and I'll talk about all the dumb shit I said and all the oopsie daisies. Yeah, so love you guys. Thank you very much. Be good to each other. Don't forget to square the circle.